play it all or nothing. Yeah, need it all in advance. The opposition know we're ready for it. Like a supper we eating, it won't be the last. Grind all the muscle, pull up. Poker right on the grass. We coming in, take over everything, run it up. Nothing holding me back. 3 in the wood, rushing.
Welcome to Takeover, the most underrated sports debate show on YouTube. Josh, how you feeling?
The World Baseball Classic just wrapped up, so I got the last pure essence of baseball that I'm ever going to get because of the stupid freaking pitch clock. But other than that, I'm great.
Gandra, how's it working for you?
I'm good.
Cam, how's it going with you? Cam always asks, everybody always asks,
no one asks me.
What's up, everybody asks, what's Cam going to say, but nobody ever asks, how is Cam going to say?
I appreciate you. I'm doing good, too. I'm ready to start
That's
that.
good to hear.
What are we talking about today?
All right, so we're going to start off today with some basketball. So the NBA regular season is winding down, getting ready to go into playoff time, one of the best times of the year. This is where the best go against the best. So speaking of the best, who do you guys think is the best team in the Eastern Conference?
So look, when I think of the Eastern Conference, as of right now, with the 2-team race, I believe Joel Embiid is the MVP of the NBA right now. But I can't trust James Harden in a series or, I don't know, down the line. I've seen James Harden go in fourth quarter, only shoot 2 shots, and the team loses. I can't trust James Harden. He's fighting playoff demons. And I think comparing the Celtics and Bucks stat-wise, I mean, they're nearly identical in everything. Almost the same defensive rating. The Bucks are 3, the Celtics are 4. The win percentage over teams over 500, they're nearly the same. So I feel like the question we're really asking is Jason Tatum or Giannis Antetokounmpo? And I go back to this when I think of my answer for this. Why do we take Jordan over Kareem? Why do we take Kobe over Shaq? The league has been perimeter dominated since the 90s and for a majority of time. So I trust Tatum and the Celtics to be the best team, and I trust Tatum over Giannis as of right now. Jason Tatum is averaging 30 points right now. Jaylen Brown is averaging 27. Jaylen Brown has honestly been playing just as good as Jason Tatum. He just takes less shots because Jason Tatum is the one. And Robert Williams just came back, I think, a couple nights ago, or it could have been last night, and he helps out a lot on the defensive end. Not to mention, Jason Tatum's already beaten Embiid and Giannis in a playoff series in 2018, and then he beat Giannis last year. So I trust the Celtics and I trust Jason Tatum as the best team, and I think they'll represent the East in June.
I get what you're saying. I do. I understand it. Especially about James Harden. But hear me out, right? Hear me out. What if we go into a postseason series where James Harden isn't the best player on his team?
You said is?
Isn't. What if we go into isn't? Because all his postseason failures, he was the best player on his team, right?
Sure.
He was on a team that was built around him to do everything. And as someone who's watched a team like that, I can tell you eventually it does tend to wear the guy down. Just ask Luka Doncic. It happens to him every year. So now you're talking about a team in Philly who's got James Harden averaging 22 and 11. Tyrese Maxey gives them 20 off the bench. They've got probably the most consistent, steady number 3 to 4 option in Tobias Harris. And you've got guys like Shake Milton. I've got Philadelphia for the simple fact of, as of right now, especially over the past month and a half, I don't think there's anybody playing better basketball than Joel Embiid. I know I said Jokic was my MVP. At this point, it's a toss-up in my opinion because do I want to be an advanced stats nerd or do I just want to look at it and go, holy crap, this man is shooting 53-40 and has 2 blocks and he's doing it every night against everybody. I got Philly for the simple fact of I think that they've got that depth. First of all, I'm a little concerned with the Celtics too. Okay. I'm concerned about Jaylen Brown. Not because of his production. I think he's still a fantastic player. But the fact that he came out and said, I'll be here if I'm needed. I don't know if he feels needed. And I think that could flare up at the wrong time. If he's feeling a little type of way, I think that can destroy a team.
I feel like that's a thing they'll handle that's a next season problem.
Probably, but what if it flares up right? Because he's talking about it now. It's this season still, Kim. And he's already talking about it.
I think that's a next
He could have done the Kyrie Irving where he's like, oh, I'll be back next season. And then at the dead of night, just, never mind, I'm off to Brooklyn.
We're talking about this year.
I know, but I'm saying, I think that, because he's clearly feeling this way this year because he's talking out about it. I think that could be a significant thing. And again, the other reason is, I think Tyrese Maxey is the best 6 man in the league. He should be starting.
I disagree with that, but it's okay.
Who's the best 6 man?
Bobby Portis.
That's actually fair. I respect that. But we're not going to that team regardless, so it don't really matter. But Tyrese Maxey gives them another way to score. It's another guy to take the load off James Harden's shoulders or Embiid's shoulders. They can beat you in a lot of different ways. I think if Boston comes up against a team that is a little bit bigger, I know we like to call Al Horford the Giannis stopper, but eventually he's going to start to look his age. Right? And I don't really trust Robert Williams because I think Robert Williams gets hurt a lot. And I think that there's a certain level of he does a lot, but he gives back some on offense because he's very limited. I'm buying Philly right now.
To me, the best team in the Eastern Conference would be the Milwaukee Bucks. And so obviously in good company with the Boston Celtics and the Philadelphia 76ers. I think with Milwaukee and the Boston Celtics, as you said, they're very similar when it comes to stat-wise and stuff. I think it's kind of 1A, 1B type of thing, and obviously the 76ers coming up right behind. But what I like about the Bucks is that they suffered a lot of injuries this season, and they were actually able to get past those injuries. So obviously Chris Middleton being out and Giannis being out at one point, and to attest to how good this team is in their journey to acquiring the first seed in the Eastern Conference. Chris Middleton, he's slowly and gradually being added back into the lineup. You have Bobby Portis, who missed a whole lot of games. You have Giannis, who will miss games as well, and he even left early in some games as well. And this was in the midst of a 16-game winning streak. So they were able to win 16 games back-to-back while going through all of these injuries. And then with the added depth that they have, you have everyone outside of Giannis contributing as well. You have people stepping up to the plate in those times of need. When you have, I think, Javon Carter, I think he's averaging 21 points. You have Bobby Portis and Jay Crowder, and that's just the bench. And then you're getting into players that we always talk about, like Chris Middleton, who we know is a bucket, Drew Holiday, who's one of the best defensive guards in the league, and Brook Lopez. And like I said, all of these teams are good. Like the Philadelphia 76ers, a good team, but I have some concerns about James Harden consistency, and I have some concerns about the depth as well, because their depth isn't really amazing. So there will be some concerns when Joel Embiid is off of the court, and I'm also concerned about the defense around Joel Embiid, because when you look at the Milwaukee Bucks, the defense around Giannis is really good. And I'm not saying that their defense around Joel Embiid is bad, but I just don't think it's on that level. And the Celtics, like I said, 1A, 1B. But the health of Robert Williams does concern me a little bit, because he is a huge factor when it comes to playing defense against Giannis Antetokounmpo. And you talked about how they were able to get a win over them in the series. But if I'm mistaken, the series went to 7 games without Chris Middleton and without the added depth that they had. So I think with Chris Middleton and with the added depth that they have now, I think they can definitely get a win over the Boston Celtics. And when I look over the defense as well, they give up the least amount of corner threes. They give up the least amount of mid-range shots. They give up the least amount of shots at the rim as well. And they're the second best defensive rebounding team in the league. Like the best scorers in the league struggle to score against them from time to time. So that's why I got the Milwaukee Bucks. Plus, they have the best player in the world on their team.
Here's the thing about the Milwaukee Bucks, especially when you start comparing them to the Boston Celtics. I start to think you need Giannis to play his best game night in and night out, I feel like, for that Bucks team to win. You also need the same thing from Joel Embiid for the 76ers to be ultra competitive. Jason Tatum dropping 20 points or maybe 15 points. I remember that game in the finals where he just kind of lost it and the Celtics still won. I don't know if the Bucks have enough bodies on defense, or even the 76ers have enough bodies on defense to continually guard this Celtics team. Because let's say that Jason Tatum doesn't have a good game, so you still have Jaylen Brown. I've seen Marcus Smart heat up from 3. You have Malcolm Brogdon now on that team. There's so many outliers. The best player on the Celtics doesn't have to show up. And when Jason Tatum does show up, it's almost a blowout, like we saw in some of those games. Because Jason Tatum, he had off games, and he came back, and this team looked like they were unbeatable for an entire stretch. So I feel like that's the major difference between the Celtics and the rest of these 3 teams.
I worry about the Bucks shooting, because outside of Chris Middleton on his best days, I'm not 100% sure who they really have that's like a 3-point threat that I'm worried about. I know Pat Connaughton is white, but he doesn't shoot like a white boy.
He dunks. He can jump.
He can jump. But hey, if you want a white boy that can jump, the Sixers got Matt McClung.
That's
so
very true.
I'm just saying. But on the depth argument about the Sixers, I mean, looking at the roster right now, they got Daniel House coming off the bench. He's not going to do a ton of good stuff, but he's a solid wing defender. Yeah. He's had some good moments. You have Jalen McDaniels, who was a pretty sought-after trade deadline guy, 6'9", he can handle the ball. DeAnthony Melton, I forgot he was on that team. DeAnthony Melton causes havoc on defense. You saw him in Memphis last year. He creates problems. Georges Niang is a good jump shooter. They've got PJ Tucker, old man Tucker, who just plays old man ball, shoots corner threes, and pisses people off. I think Philly's going to be interesting just because I think they got enough ways to beat you. I understand what you're saying, but again, I think James Harden not having to be the guy night in and night out is going to help him in the playoffs where if they need him to step up, he can.
I feel like the 76ers are a bad matchup for the Milwaukee Bucks as well. I feel like that's more of an interesting series because once you get outside of the Giannis, who's really going to stop Joel Embiid over and over, night in and night out? Because Giannis has
Lopez.
You think he's gonna stop Joel Embiid though?
I don't think anybody can stop Joel Embiid.
We're just dictating him. I think the Celtics have kind of had the 76ers number when it comes to just history-wise, but I feel like it's interesting, definitely in the East. For sure.
I know you pointed out the people on the bench and like their depth or whatnot, but like when it comes, the 76ers. But when it comes to like in a playoff series where you have to make adjustments and stuff like that, I don't know, because like people like Tobias Harris, he plays good, but like in a playoff setting, it's like, where does it go?
Man, y'all haven't brought up the strongest point against me. They have Doc Rivers as their head coach.
That's very true.
Just saying. I mean, he accidentted himself with one title, but he ain't done nothing since. Maybe this is the second one. Who knows? Hawks legend Doc Rivers. Shout out.
I also feel like the defense of the Milwaukee Bucks, to your point that you made about all of the playmakers on the Boston Celtics, that is very true. They have a whole lot of playmakers. But I will say there are points in the Boston Celtics offense where it can get kind of stagnant when they go on a drought, like for threes. And I feel like with the Milwaukee Bucks and their defense with Drew Holiday, even Chris Middleton being good defensively, Brook Lopez, and Giannis, I just feel like the defense will be able to hold as well.
My biggest reason to sell the Celtics is they don't really have a point guard.
They made it to the finals. Well, they made it to the finals without one.
I think in certain cases it can be bad to not have it because they don't really have a guy that'll set someone else up. So if you can't get it within the flow of an offense or Jason Tatum can't ISO his way in, you know, it could get bad. But at the same time, like you said,
rare. That's what I'm saying. So it's interesting. You guys have anything to say? Anything else to wrap up?
Baseball season. It's baseball season, baby. 15 seconds in between pitches.
I hope the Braves do good for your mental health.
Hey, listen. As an Atlanta fan, there's no such thing as mental health. So you take the good with the good, and then when the bad happens, you're just like, oh, okay, well, back to the status quo. Wait till next year.
I heard 12 is back from Memphis.
Here you go.
So what is it, Josh?
17-year-olds duck everywhere. He comes for the preteens.
It's a parade inside my city, yeah! Takeover.
It all in night. Yeah, need it all in advance. The opposition know we're ready for it. Like a supper we eating, it won't be the last. Grind all the muscle, pull up. Parker right on the grass. We coming in, take over everything, run it up. Nothing holding me back. 3 in the wood, rushing. I don't like Dutch, don't even matter. You know I'm a face, and when I roll a paper, I like to go double. Run up a check, flip a W, make it an M. I need